Good afternoon, my name is Barry Halverson. This is the Lake Lawrence YouTube channel. With me today is Craig Ottavelli with Org Support and his Chief Operating Officer, Timian Smith. We're going to be talking today about support for the Black Lake Special District and any other special districts that may be formed from lake management districts or other lakes in Washington State. So one of the first questions is you provide back office organizational support to the Black Lake Special District. How long have you been doing that, and what type of support do you provide?
We've been working with the Black Lake Special District since 2013.
And what type of support do you provide to Black Lake Special District?
Manner of administrative support that an organization like a special district might need. So communications and website maintenance, agenda creation, minute taking at the meetings, meeting coordination and organization, all of the announcements and communications that are required by the Open Public Meetings Act. We provide all of the bookkeeping services, so accounts payable and accounts receivable management. We also support and facilitate the unique challenges that commissioners face, so supporting them getting their bonds, supporting them in their efforts around crafting resolutions, basically any of the day-to-day operational aspects, anything administrative that's related to the organization, that's us.
Okay. Black Lake has a very good website. Do you work with that too?
Yeah, we set that website up for them. There are a lot of challenges, especially for a small organization, around the Open Public Meetings Act and the Open Public Records Act, and the website is really the key to dealing with those challenges, and by extension, the challenges that can come from public records requests. So we set up that website originally and maintain it in an ongoing way, and we use that as a key tool to ensure transparency and ease of access for the public to information.
Okay, so you did mention the Open Public Meetings Act and the right of people to request information through a public records request. How many of those do you get for Black Lake Special District?
On average, maybe one every 2 years. We don't get them very frequently.
And when you get them, you can refer them directly to the link on the website?
It depends on the request.
It depends on the request, and so we don't get many.
The question all the LMDs and lakes that are looking at this have that is how much does this type of support cost?
So our rates range dramatically based on the activity level of the organization. Typical district like Black Lake Special District would be within $2,500 to $5,000 a month range.
Okay, so we're looking at about anywhere between $30,000 and $60,000 a year.
On average, right.
Yes.
And again, it's going to depend on sort of the size level and the activity level of the entity.
So we've talked about a number of things that you do as part of org support. Do you have a menu of services or an a la carte menu for services?
So we don't do a la carte services, but we do have kind of a menu on our website and in our brochure. So like Craig said earlier, anything you could imagine happening administratively are things that we do. Social media, e-blasts, like the whole gamut.
So you're basically handling all the Washington State regulations that an organization has to deal with.
Right. So if an entity has a filing or a report or announcement timing requirement, any sort of challenges that dictate how some activity has to happen, how it has to play out over time, or how it has to be done specifically, then yes, again, that's an administrative function. We're working with the commission to make sure that that those things are handled appropriately.
Okay. This is a fairly unique type of organization. It's kind of a niche. Are there other organizations like yours across the state? Because we have LMDs all the way over in Stevens County on the east side, up north in Whatcom County.
Sure, there are a couple of organizations that are sort of the same vein as we are. We differ from them in one very significant way. So imagine instead of a lake district, a nonprofit, so a 501c6 membership organization or a 501c3 charity. When we contract with one of those organizations, we put in place an agreement that spells out the sort of support that we're going to give. What that agreement doesn't include and what we do not do is provide leadership. We do not take on decision-making authority for the entities that we serve. The other organizations in Washington State that we are aware of, all of them require those agreements to cede decision-making control to those organizations. So they'll say, here's your new executive director who's our staff person, and this executive director is going to have decision-making authority over these certain things. So we work with our boards of directors, or in the case of the special district, with the commissioners, to empower and support them in their decision-making and in their leadership.
So how would you support a lake management district that wants to transition to a special district, or a lake that wants to become a special district that is on the east side or north in Washington State or south in Washington State?
Well, given the advances in technology over the past few years, the bulk of our clients we work with remotely at this point. So a long distance client would not be an issue. We might, depending on the situation, coordinate some in-person meetings where we travel to the location to meet with people or to do plans or any number of things. But for the most part, we can handle everything remotely.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. I would add to that, there are requirements around in-person meeting locations, for example. So if it were an organization in Eastern Washington, either we would need to identify a staff person from our team that could facilitate in-person meetings on that side, or we could coordinate with a commissioner so that they could, you know.
So what you're saying is you can do a lot of things virtually, but there has to be a physical location for meetings identified in the agenda or the website for meetings.
Correct, yeah.
You certainly could work with a commissioner who is willing to, maybe they have a conference room at their office, or you could find somebody in the district that's willing to make that conference room available, or a public space and library, just somebody that's willing to be at that space, and we could coordinate that from here.
Absolutely.
In the event of something like a large annual meeting, which we do and support Black Lake Special District in doing, where we expect a turnout, and there's going to be handouts, and we're helping the commissioners put together a PowerPoint to really educate their members, we would probably send a staff person across the mountains to be there, because this is sort of the big one, and we'd want to make sure it came off without a hitch. So we would want a physical person on site. And so, again, we have found that both members of the district and the commissioners, they really prefer online options like Zoom or GoToMeeting now over the physical. It's just more convenient. You don't have the travel. There are a lot of reasons. And so handling and supporting remotely is it's just not really an issue anymore.
Okay. You process invoices or warrants, as the county and jurisdictions call them, for Black Lake Special District. What does it cost Black Lake to process a warrant?
So Black Lake does not pay per warrant. So they could have 30 warrants in a week or in a month, and each of those warrants doesn't come with a cost, neither from us. We're processing those warrants, and we can talk about our pricing. We mentioned sort of the total cost. We should get into some more details there, but there isn't a per warrant cost. But the Black Lake Special District has elected to use our local county treasurer to provide fiscal services. That doesn't eliminate a need for the district to do anything. What it really means is that the monies are collected by the county and they remain with the county, and they're accounted for by the county. But accounts payable and accounts receivable is still managed by the special district, and that's where we come in. So we maintain an accurate set of books that's reconciled instead of against a bank statement, against the statements and the data that we get from the county. And then we use the county system to issue requests for warrants. Then we pick up, process, and send those warrants. The county does not charge per warrant. We do not charge per warrant, but our county, Thurston County, charges a 1% fee for that fiscal management, and I believe it's 1% of gross.
revenue
to the district, if I'm not mistaken. Different counties may have a different approach, or I suppose it's possible wouldn't even offer to provide the fiscal management, I'm not sure. It's worth noting, at least in Thurston County, it is optional. The Black Lake Special District could choose to manage all of this themselves using a traditional bank account and a traditional checkbook. The district felt it was important, and I agree, for purposes of transparency and accountability. The ratepayers in the district, they want to feel confident and assured that their resources are being managed properly, and having the county directly involved in the fiscal side, especially since they're the ones doing the collection, just makes sense. So the 1% in this case that Black Lake Special District pays feels like a reasonable amount.
That they've chosen to have the county assessor collect the fees through the property tax system, and the county treasurer hold those fees and process warrants or invoices.
Correct.
Okay. So Lake Stensey, who is the Black Lake Special District Commissioner, one of the three, told me that the Black Lake Special District has not purchased liability insurance. Is there any reason a lake management district that is looking at moving over to a special district might want to do that?
First of all, I would love to point out that we are not attorneys.
Yeah.
And so anything that we say is just our opinion and not necessarily advice. Liability insurance, I think, would be most applicable if you were having a lot of activities for the district putting on. That's where I would be most concerned about having it. Since they have the bonds for all the commissioners, it negates the need for most of that.
Okay, so you just mentioned bonds for the commissioners. How does that work?
So in the early days, we did in fact have liability coverage for the district, but what the commissioners realized over time is that they're not the ones making decisions about how to perform treatments on the lake. They're not the ones actually performing the treatments on the lake. The people that are running the calculations, doing the science, doing the treatments, those are the folks that have both the knowledge and really bear the liability. And so instead, the special district requires any contractor that's working on the lake has to have appropriate insurance in place and issue a COI or a certificate of insurance with Thurston County and the Black Lake Special District as named insured. And so effectively, that provides the coverage that's needed for the activities that are taking place on the lake. And then, as Timian mentioned, commissioners are required to have a bond in place. If you wanted to take it a step further, you could seek directors and officers insurance, but our district is not elected to do so.
The RCW that governs special districts, I believe it's 8538, requires a bond to be posted by each commissioner, and that bond is $1,000. They go out and get a private insurer to post that bond. They're required to pay a certain amount to get that private insurer to do that. And how often do they have to post that money, and how much is it?
Bond is $1,000. The most recent one, charge that I'm recalling was $100. I think it's worth noting that both with regard to the bonds that the commissioners are required to receive, well, I'll separate them. With the bonds the commissioners are required to receive, the district commissioners may pass a resolution indicating that the special district will reimburse for the cost of that bond. Different but related, the district may choose to provide a per diem to commissioners for meetings that they attend and participate in, and they can set that amount up to a maximum amount that's set in RCW by the state. And so they could choose a lower amount, or they can choose up to the maximum amount, and if they choose to do that, then commissioners may choose to turn in and file for essentially payment for the work that they do on behalf of the district.
These attending meetings.
Attending meetings, essentially. And that would include district meetings, but also other meetings.
So every year, the county treasurer requires an annual assessment for ratepayers in the district. And how does Black Lake do that, and how much does that cost?
I think it's important to understand the charges that come with being a special district. So org support helps Black Lake Special District develop and maintain the mailing list of those that have to pay rates and charges, and we work with the county in order to do that. So we work with geodata to pull the data, and then we get what we get from geodata, and we sort of convert that and work with that. There is a charge for the data pull and these sorts of things.
It's a minimal charge.
It is a
It
minimal
is a
charge,
minimal charge.
right? And so we're doing things like communications, required notices, and those sorts of things. But the rates and charges are being set and included on the documentation by and from the county.
The county assessor's office.
Correct.
But so they basically, you get a download from geodata on all the members of that special district, and you review those rates and charges to see if maybe there should be an increase here or a decrease here based on if they built a home or developed a property or whatever the case might be. And then you refile that information with geodata or with the county assessor's office.
With the
the
assessor.
assessors.
That cost for geodata to get that information in the map of the district is about, what, $45 a year?
Something around there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
not
nominal,
much.
and we usually pull it more than once a year.
Right.
And there are requirements as well to, again, as property owners change, you have to keep aware of
Right.
that. And so you have to set in policy how often are you going to update and
As
these
far
sorts
as
of
getting
things.
a mailing list for
Correct. Right.
different types of things, like
Exactly.
notification cards and stuff.
Correct.
And those, how are rates increased within a special district?
Rates and charges are set by the commission, and that's done by resolution. There are announcement requirements for meetings or any actions that the district is taking, and there are opportunities for public comment on those changes to rates and charges.
So basically, they have to put it on an agenda, the agenda has to be announced and available for the members to review and come to the meeting and make any comment they want. And then the commissioners make a decision as to what the rate increase should be based on the year and the cost for the district. And then they make a resolution and they vote on that resolution and post it to their website.
That's correct. Historically, the Black Lake Special District has made an intentional point of having a period between the identification of and discussions around resolutions and adoption of those resolutions to ensure, again, a high level of transparency and to ensure that there's time for the public to comment if they have any thoughts on it.
Okay, which leads into the next question is what kind of things does a special district do that would require a public hearing, require a resolution, or a process like that?
Than the rates and charges, but I think it's worth noting, all of the meetings have to be public and open. Nothing can take, with only 3 commissioners, no business can take place between any 2 commissioners. So really everything has to happen at public meetings. Those meetings have to be noticed, they have to be open to the public, and likewise the documentation and materials that go with those meetings. So there's really nothing that happens at all that isn't public and open for public comment.
Okay. What are the concerns for starting up a special district that you've seen since 2013?
I would say even getting support to form the district, it can be a challenge. We have helped other lakes try to put together.
Summit Lake as an example.
Summit Lake as an example, yes, and they didn't have the support needed to form the district. So gathering the support, I think, is one of the biggest pieces.
Yeah, there's 2 pieces to the puzzle, as Timian is saying. There is the administrative work that goes into following the steps, sort of ticking the boxes that are necessary and required in order to legally form a special district. That is one lift that requires some knowledge. But then there is also having the support of your community in order to ensure that when you finally have that vote, that you get the number of votes that you need to form the district and then be able to move forward. And so that's more of a communications and a PR element versus sort of the technical element around what do you need to file, how many signatures do you need to gather, and those sorts of things.
And that's more difficult for a special district because of the RCW, which only requires 2 votes per parcel, versus a lake management district under 3661, which allows 1 vote per dollar of assessment fee.
Right.
So that's a big one, because then you have upland and canal and lake that have different fees, and so trying to make that hurdle of getting everybody satisfied with the fee schedule is going to be difficult.
Yeah, the way Black Lake Special District did it originally was by forming a nonprofit, a charity in this case. It was a 501c3 called Save Black Lake, and that charity they laid the groundwork, they did the communication, they held the meetings, they informed the public, and that was the body that really sort of did the research around how do we want to do this? Do we want to be a lake management district or a special district or something else? And then that body decided on special district and then proceeded to do that. And because that was a formal entity, they were able to get grants and do other things that just an individual wasn't able to do. It isn't necessary to have that kind of structure, but in the case of Black Lake Special District, that's how it was done. It is also the way that Summit Lake approached it.
Well, that's why I look at lake associations as being one of those organizations that can really assist in formation of a lake management district
Yes,
or a
absolutely.
special district, because they have the contacts
Absolutely.
within the community
And the relationships.
Yeah.
and the relationships.
Yeah, and
what are the problems that you have seen working with a special district that another organization or another lake management district or someone looking at forming a special district might want to avoid?
So as we talked about before, the Open Public Meetings Act is part of all of the day-to-day operations, basically. We have to make sure that everything is posted in a timely manner. There are timelines for just about everything, and they change. So you have to stay on top of the training, stay on top of any changes that have made. Like I said, during COVID, there were some changes. Now they've changed again. So that's a tricky part, is staying on top of all of those pieces and making sure that all of your commissioners are educated and know what's expected of them. As Craig mentioned, we can't have commissioners meeting on their own. Everything has to be open, public, where everybody can hear. And with that is the little pieces, like keeping everything on the website up to date, making sure that agendas are pushed out in a timely manner, that notice is given. Even for treatments, there are a lot of steps involved. Getting the notices prepped and out and distributed by the date needed.
10
You have to
days
have such-
prior to treatment.
Exactly. It gets a little tricky, especially if it lands on a Friday and you're trying to get everything out the
So
door.
you're doing the notifications of the treatment, not the contractor.
Correct. Exactly. No, yeah, we just had to do one recently. So, yes, all of those pieces, those are the challenges that I think are the most difficult on the administrative side. There's just a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot, so.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there's the technology side. So we use special email accounts for the commissioners that are made for public officials that have different retention policies than emails for private citizens, right? For example, but the piece I would say that's really critical and can make a huge difference to the success of the entity and the success of the work that we do on behalf of the entity. It harkens back to what we were talking about earlier about how our organization is different and we support commissioners or directors in their work. We don't do their work for them. So if you have commissioners that don't show up for meetings or don't come in to sign documents that require a wet signature, you have to have a quorum, you have to follow the rules, you have to have engaged commissioners, and this is perhaps the most important piece, we know our stuff when it comes to the day-to-day administration behind the scenes, the admin, but we are not knowledgeable about the
chemicals.
Right, chemicals.
Right,
The best
exactly.
practices in lake management.
Right.
That's scientists, that's people who make
Yeah.
their living.
Yeah.
It's
Work.
not in your wheelhouse.
That's not in our wheelhouse, and so the commissioners are really the gateway between those professionals and us. So we're at all the meetings, we take minutes, sure, we become more knowledgeable than an average citizen, but we are in no way in a position to make decisions about which treatment should we pursue, or when should a treatment be pursued, or what does the best available science say is the way to deal with the particular issue that this lake is facing, and making those decisions and gleaning that knowledge from the contractors. That's the role of commissioners. So they're elected officials, they're bound by what that means, but they also have to do more than simply show up and vote. It's for those that are interested, it comes as second nature. We're very fortunate. We've had great commissioners on the Black Lake Special District, and they're really invested. That's why they're there. And so they become knowledgeable in this science, and they enjoy collaborating and working with the professionals that provide that piece of what the district needs to be successful. To make sure that you have people that are willing to serve and go to the 1 or 2 meetings a month and be knowledgeable enough to facilitate that decision making.
Right. Okay. Is there anything you would like to add before we conclude?
Nothing that I need to add.
Okay.
I would just say it's been a pleasure working with the commissioners and the Black Lake Special District. It is, I think it probably seems daunting. Once it's in place, it runs nicely, and you have a great deal of decision-making control and authority over what happens to your lake. From my perspective, it's an excellent trade-off, and it's well worth the effort to put it in place, to give residents that control and that sense of purpose behind their own dollars that they're putting into this resource. So.
Great. Well, Timian, I appreciate you coming and talking to us today.
My
Great.
pleasure.
Always a pleasure talking to you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
It'll inform them as to what they might look at doing and any changes that they might want to make in their lake structure. Because our lakes, we have 7,000 lakes in Washington State. We only have 24 lake management districts. We only have 1 special district. We've got a couple HOAs that have jurisdiction over their entire lake, so they can do things on their lake too. We have about 100 lake associations in Washington State, but they're really limited as to what they can do as far as managing or taking care of their lake, other than community projects and stuff like that. So a lot of lakes out there in Washington State are looking for an avenue to be good stewards of the water resources that we have in Washington State. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.